Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the Enduraplas live virtual showroom. Today, we're excited to be talking about the horizontal leg tank that doesn't need hoops or bands. So, we're going to start off with a 360 walk-around segment, and then we're going to show you some crazy footage of some testing we did with 3,000 gallons of water suspended in mid-air. And then we're going to wrap it up by hearing from a real farmer in South Dakota about his experience with these pin mount tanks. So with that, I'm going to hand you off to my co-hosts Doug and Michael, and they're going to kick off with the 360 walk-around segment.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you once again. Thank you for coming back here to the live virtual showroom here at Enduraplas. For those of you that's your first time here, we want to welcome you. Thank you for coming. And for those of you that have come back for another round, we certainly thank you for coming back as well. We enjoyed putting these on for you and walking through our products a little bit. Today we're going to be talking about the Enduraplas, the horizontal transport tanks. And we're very, very excited to introduce that to you because it's really one of the trademark features of the Enduraplas brand is the transport tank. So we're a little bit excited here, guys. And in just a minute here after Michael introduces himself, we're going to walk through and we're going to give you some features and some good information on this. My name's Doug Symington. I'm a sales rep here with the company, been with the company a long time, folks, and looking forward to this. And this is Michael with me here.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you. And welcome all that are viewing in or come on board as new viewers. My name is Michael Symington. I've been here with Enduraplas for a number of years. And we're excited, as Doug says, to list out some of the options, some of the uses for these tanks and what they can be used for. And just going to go through the range of the horizontal transport tanks today. And with that, we're just going to kick off with some of the tank sizes and colors of options that we got available. And with that, Doug, I'll let you kind of take that and just tell them what kind of sizes we got.
Thanks, Mike. We'll start out with real basic information, like Mike says, on sizes and colors. So what you see here today is just two options that we have. We're just virtually, they're just here for the show. This right here is a 1,600-gallon freestanding tank. This black one here beside me. And this one right over here is going to be a 550-gallon sump bottom tank with a frame. Now, this is just an example of what we have. We've got them all the way from little itty-bitty 110-pound baby, 110-gallon baby tanks, all the way up to a 4,500-gallon monster that's about 3 times the size of this one. So we've got a huge range of tanks, folks, in the transport style. All of them, of course, are the pin mount, which we're going to talk about after a little bit. But I just want to point that up. One more thing I want to point up, folks, as we go along here today, ask questions. That's what this is all about for everybody that's on here. Ask questions. Ask lots of them and ask good ones. When we get to the end here, we'll get back to a question and answer session, and that's the part we look forward to, and probably you as well. So back to the tanks, we offer them all the sizes from 110-gallon up to 4,500-gallon, and then we offer quite a range of colors. Right here you see black. See green, and we have yellow and white. The reason we have black and green in here is because they're pretty much our standard sellers. Green has always been our traditional corporate color. Over the last few years, black has kind of taken it over on the transport tank side. We sell more black probably now than we do green. Yellow and white, not so much. They're available by custom order if you want to, but it's not something we stock. And the reason why black has taken over is because of algae. And everyone that's in the agriculture world and the spray world and the commercial spray world knows algae is a problem. And what happens is I go out and fill my truck 8, 9 o'clock at night, planning to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and spray, and by golly, we get an inch of rain during the night, right? So that truck has to sit for 2 or 3 days until it dries up enough to spray again. And guess what? You go out there, you've got white tanks in your truck. Inside there, you've got this miserable green film. That's the algae, and we all know it's going to plug the nozzles. It's going to give you trouble. You put a black tank on here on your trailers, and you won't have that problem. And Mike, you tell them why that is. Tell them why it is, how algae grows inside of tanks.
So that's a good point, Doug, and thanks for that. So algae has to have sunlight to grow. So the only way for algae to grow on water is if the sun can directly contact it, and it actually grows with sunlight. So with the black tank here, we make these a solid color, so if you go inside the tank and shut the lid, it's complete darkness, so there's no light shining through at all. So that prevents any algae growth. And as Doug says, that green film that gets in there, what you're doing there is just putting the potential of getting that through your sprayer nozzles and plugging things up. So that's why the black color is really pulled forward here in the past, what do you say, year or two?
Yeah, maybe
really
even more
caught
than
on.
that, 4 or 5 years. It's just continually growing and growing. Pretty much the majority, especially in the bigger size tanks of the transport tanks that we sell now, the majority of them are black, aren't they?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
mostly, so.
And we're stocking a lot more black products too, as Doug says. The yellow and white ones are more of a kind of a custom order. With
Yep.
that being said, we do make the polymer. We grind our own material and we produce the raw material for the tanks. So we do have a good handhold on the
Production, right,
production
from start
right
to
from the
finish.
start. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. So with that, Mike, let's move on into the, let's talk about the difference between the sump bottom. And again, folks, ask questions as we go along. If you have questions about color, sizes, anything we talk about, definitely ask them and we'll get to them. But let's talk about the sump bottom versus the flat bottom, should we?
Absolutely. Yep. So what we got here on these two tanks that Doug pointed out to you, these are just two samples of what we got. What we have here, as you can see, this one's sitting flat on the floor. This is a freestanding tank. It's a flat on the bottom. It's freestanding. So it'll sit right flat on the ground, or if you've got a flatbed truck that you want to make into a water truck, this will sit right flat on the truck. What's the difference in the sump bottom tank? This one here, you can see it. It's sitting on a frame. It has a sump underneath of that hangs down about 6 inches below the level of your legs. That's why it's being held up on a frame. Now what's happening under there is there's actually a trough the length of that tank that's all draining sloped into that sump. And that's going to be for a full drain out. So typically your uses of this are going to be if you're carrying a hot load or mixing product or something, one tank load to another, and you want to have a full drain out system, this works really well for flushing that out.
Yep. I also see a lot of guys in the commercial fertilizer hauling industry. They'd rather have this because they get 100% drain out. They'd rather have the sump tank with the frame. It's a little more cost, but in reality, Michael, in today's world, you know, when you're talking about putting together a 50, 60, 70,000, depending what you put on a semi-trailer, what's a couple $1,000s for two frames?
Absolutely.
You know,
yeah.
just, you know, don't short yourself where a little bit can go a long ways. You know, that's kind of just a rule of thumb. Always.
That's a great point, Doug. And another thing of that is you can always, I mean, if you were ever to go resell the tank, it's always going to be worth more sump bottom on a frame because it's more uses.
And not only that, if you ever need to take it off that trailer, it's so much easier when it's on a frame. It's just 4 bolts, 2 on the end on each side of the frame that bolt that frame down to the bed of the truck. And you just undo those 4 bolts and you lift it off. Just as easy as that.
So just going into this, Doug, on how to get the liquid out of the tanks, do you want to just tell them a little bit on how these ones drain out versus the sump bottom?
Yeah, I'd love to, Mike. So let's start with this one with the 1600, the freestanding. I want to keep emphasizing that word freestanding if we can, because a lot of times when I say the word freestanding to people, they're just like, what? What's that mean? And what happens is, if we call this a flat bottom, everybody mixes it up with the vertical tanks because in the industry they're known as a flat bottom. So we call this a freestanding tank, and just for everybody watching or listening, that's why we call it that. Anyway, so the freestanding tank is gonna, everything 1600 gallons and larger is gonna come with a bolted 3-inch fitting, 6 bolts. It's gonna come right in the end where you see the one down on the end of the tank here, and inside of that. And let's back up just one step. You notice how that fitting is about 3-4 inches off the bottom of the tank. Okay, there's a reason for that, and that is because the way our tanks are built, they're so thick in the walls that when they come down to the bottom where they make the curve, it gets thicker and thicker. And if you go too close to the bottom with your fitting, you can't make it seal. It does, your fitting won't seal properly. So that's why we leave it up a little ways on these freestanding tanks, and we put the siphon tube inside the tank. So everyone is going to come with a siphon tube like you see here, tip to the bottom. It's going to suck right off the floor of the tank. And when you get done draining this, I don't know, what would you say, Mike? Would you have 50 gallons left in there?
Probably.
Maybe, give or take a little bit. No more than that. And a lot of the guys that use these tanks, if they have them in the back of a truck or a trailer, you park on a crossing, you don't have any left in there hardly at all.
Yep.
It just literally drains it right out. But if you're looking for the full drain, like we've talked about a couple times, you want to go with this sump. And I think Michael explained it really well with that trough in the bottom and they're going into the sump and the inside of the legs sloping into that trough. So you're getting 100% drain out. And that's just a really awesome feature. But this tank right here, the sump bottom tanks, If you order them with a standard fitting, it's going to come out the side of the sump. Okay? So it's going to come right out the side of that sump. So you're going to get a full drain except for maybe about an inch in the bottom of the sump itself, of that square sump. If you need a full drain, then you need to go with what we call a full drain fitting that goes right in the bottom of the sump. That means you have to cut a hole in the deck of your trailer or truck, whatever, run your plumbing down under the trailer, and then you're going to get a full drain. Everything is going to come out. So back to the size differences, and I'm sure there'll be some questions on the fittings as we go along, and I'm hoping there is at the end. I hope you guys will put some questions in. But so on the sizes, so 1,600 gallon and larger is all going to come with a 3-inch fitting. Everything smaller than a 1,600 is going to come standard with a 2-inch fitting, unless you order it different than that. Yep. So that's the way we do the fittings. Just seems like the 2-inch fits better with the smaller sizes, and the guys that buy them tend to like them better. So that's the way we've left it. I don't know what more, Mike. Is there more to talk about?
That's good. That's excellent. So standardly, when they come, as Doug says, out the side of the sump, the plumbing would run on the trailer deck. But like you said, if you go down underneath the sump and go out the floor, it runs underneath, and that's the proper way to do the full drain.
Yep. With that, let's talk about, Mike. Let's talk about the stainless lid, and you're kind of an expert on that. Show them how that works. Maybe while you're going onto the stainless lid, show them the ladder too before you climb up it.
Absolutely. So the ladder here, as Doug points out, is an actual optional. It's not. It doesn't come with the tank. It has to be specified when ordering a tank. You have to specify whether to get the ladder. These ladders here fit all of our tanks, horizontal tanks rather, 1,600 gallons and up. We have 2 sizes of tanks that are taller than this. I think the 3,000 gallon and the 4,500 gallon. They get an additional extension or rung on the bottom of this. But these things here bolt right on this lift lug, and they couple right. They molded right to fit the tank like this. Nice handholds, real easy climb.
It's real easy to install too. It's 1 bolt.
Yep.
1 bolt to install. I mean, it just doesn't get any easier than that.
And as you see this tank here, we're looking right level with the lid there. But if you open this lid, you can't see inside from on the ground. So by having a ladder here, you can just see how simple that is to check your tanks.
And safe.
And safe.
And safe. For those of us that are getting older, safety's a big feature anymore, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't know of any of us that aren't getting older.
That's right. So let's talk about this stainless lid. That's kind of a key feature to the Enduraplas transport tanks, isn't it?
It is. And the first thing I want to point out is the lockable lid. So this here you can tighten down, and it's actually got 2 clips here where you can put a padlock through it. You can lock this. You got expensive product in there. You're leaving it out in the field overnight. You can actually padlock this shut.
Yep.
Another feature I want to point out is a rubber gasket around the rim here. So when that shuts and you tighten it down, secure it, any sloshing of liquid coming up against that tank is not going to spill out around this gasket. And the third thing I want to point up is these 2-inch vents here. And the purpose for those is when you're sucking out of the bottom fitting, as Doug pointed out before, obviously you've got liquid going out of the tank to keep that tank from collapsing in. We've got these vents here to keep that airflow going through.
Or if you're filling from the bottom, which most people do nowadays, fill from the bottom port, you can let air out either way. So it works both ways. But I'll tell you what, folks, the stainless lid is a feature that we have on all of the transport tanks, 1,600 gallons and larger. And that is an advancement we've made in the last, I don't know, probably 7-8 years. And it is a huge step forward, and everybody that has a stainless lid on their tank now will tell you that they won't go back to plastic.
That's right.
And they will also, we have lots and lots of people that have tanks, even competitors' tanks with plastic lids, that are coming in and trying to get stainless lids to switch them out, which you can do.
Yep.
But what I'm trying to point out there is that this is a step forward. It's a huge upgrade on these tanks, and it's a very important feature. When you're transporting liquid down the road and you have to make a sudden stop, you don't want that lid to pop out, and you don't want liquid spraying out on your trailer bed. You don't want it spraying around in the cars next to you, which has happened. Things like that. You don't want that. That's why we've gone to this for safety, for all them reasons, and it's just a big upgrade. It's well
Very good point. And as Doug says, you can replace this. It's got a ring around here that's just leg bolted on.
Yep.
You can take your existing lid out and replace it.
So on all the tanks smaller than a 1600 gallon, we just use what we call the quarter turn poly lid. It's a very standard lid, drops down into place, closes. It's vented as well. It has a vent built right into the lid. And then when you get down into the little itty bitty tanks, you go to an 8-inch screw-in lid.
Yep.
So
I think 200 gallons and lower or something is the 8-inch lid.
So that's kind of what you're going to see from the lids from us. With that, Mike, why don't you tell them about the lifting lugs?
Yeah, absolutely. You can probably see it on the screen tank here a little better. So you see these little lug holders. We call them lifting lugs on the ends of the tanks. These lugs here basically are here for just what you heard there, a lifting lug. So when this tank is empty, you can put a pin through here, put a clevis on it or whatever, and strap and lift these on and off the truck. You cannot do that with liquid in these tanks. Must be empty when you lift these with the lifting lugs. The tank is not designed to lift with liquid in it, but it's a real handy way to get them on and off the truck. So you're not trying to fork that tank from underneath, you know, and risk putting a fork hole in the bottom of the tank or something. You can just literally run a strap and lift this tank on and off, so you can use that trailer. You may use it for hauling hay or cars or whatever off-season from spray.
Yep. The most common way that tanks get wrecked is with pallet forks. We call it pallet fork blight. It's the most common way that they get wrecked. This eliminates that problem. You don't have to lift them on and off the truck with a pallet fork. And for guys that use their trailer for other things besides water trailers, you might use it to haul hay, you might use it to haul who knows what throughout the year. It's real easy. Just lift them on, use it when you need to, lift it off. Simple as that.
Nice and easy.
So that's how we like it. Then we're going to move into the baffles. So all of our tanks have a form of baffling. And if you look down here on the side of this tank or the side of this one, you're going to see on both, on the 1600, the 15, on the 550, and all of our transport tanks have what we call a quarter baffle. Okay? Now what that does for you, obviously when your tank is full, you don't need a baffle. And obviously when it's nearly empty, you don't need a baffle. But when it's about half full, that's when you get your product movement, and that's when it gets dangerous because you've got that makes waves in there. The quarter baffle, it will not stop the motion of the water, but it will break it up. Okay? Does that fix the problem completely? No. But it does help a lot. A lot of people go with just these baffles, especially in the farming world where you use them, you know, 5 months out of the year, whatever. That's all the baffles they use, and it works fine. But if you're in the commercial transport world, or if you're moving a lot of water, using it a lot more than that, I would recommend stepping up to a little bit more baffle than that. Even though these work well, I would go, we have a couple different options out there I'd like to show you. The first one here I want to show you is this baffle ball. Okay? Now the way the baffle ball works, Michael will show you how you just snap them together.
Yeah, they come in two halves like this, and you can see they've got little clip points, which you obviously line up with the opposite style there. You just make sure all your clip points go through, and you just take that ball and give it a little turn, and it snaps those clips into place, and that locks it. So that is all the assembly that's required on these baffle balls. If you want to buy baffle balls to put in an existing tank, that is literally, you get them in halves like this, so they're a lot easier to ship, and you just take them in halves and clip them together like that.
Now I want to tell you a little bit about the baffle balls, because this is a product that I think is under-recognized, and it's got huge potential. The baffle ball, first of all, people say, how many does it take? Well, obviously, one ball does 10 gallons, offsets 10 gallons of water. So in a 1,600-gallon tank, you're going to need 160 baffle balls. On a 550, you're going to need around 53, 4 of them, something like that. But the way it works, you fill the tank plumb full. And we had a question earlier, someone asked, what happens if you only fill it partially full? I would recommend not doing that, because then the balls will actually start to move around inside the tank, and they'll actually beat each other up in there. As they get moved around, they'll beat each other up and do damage to the baffle balls themselves. But if you fill the tank up with them, the way it works, so you got them all sitting here, you can kind of envision it. You got 150 of these packed inside of this tank. Each one of them becomes its own sphere, and they fill full of liquid. And honestly, I have witnessed it. You can take a load. Everybody knows what it's like to take a load of water that moves around, and actually can get a little bit scary sometimes even.
Yep.
This will make it so solid you'll think you're hauling a load of sand, won't it?
Yeah, and because it's round like this, it blocks the slosh from not only front to back, but side to side.
So not only do you have better stopping, like way better stopping, you've also got the stability of not having your water moving this way and the risk of tip over. It's got, they're hugely, I don't know, they're hugely effective, really.
Yeah, they
That's
are.
the word I'm looking for.
And actually, not only just the safety of driving, as Doug points out, extremely safe, a lot safer than when you're just going with no baffles. But more than that is the wear and tear on your truck. Now you've got a truck, and you have a water tank without baffles. It takes about 30% more braking power to stop that truck.
And distance.
And distance. So when you're stopping a load of water with no baffles in, and that slosh motion is pushing against your truck, you've got 30% more wear on your truck, on your braking system. And when you're taking off from a stop, and that slosh is pulling away from you, you're putting 30% more wear on the drivetrain of the truck. So you're not only riding safer, you're saving your truck a lot of wear and tear.
But I know when I'm driving a truckload of liquid, I want it. I don't want that. I don't want that risk. And when I put a hired man in there, which most farms now have lots of them, you don't want to put a guy in there and run that liability. Or you put your boy or girl in there to drive that truck, or your wife. You don't want that liability. You
Even
want that
turning in
stability.
and out of field approaches, it really holds that load from sloshing when you're going over the side.
Moral of the story is the Baffle Ball is a product that is worth every penny you put into it. It's very, very valuable product.
We have one more option, Doug, if you
Yep.
just tell them about the wall baffle.
So we have another baffle that's a solid baffle, but it's only in, and I'll clarify this again, it's only available in the 2,800 and 3,200 gallon tanks at this time. I do believe there is other sizes coming up the pipe. I don't know how soon, but I believe there is. At this point, it's the 2,800 and 3,200 gallon that have the baffle. And I'm going to tell you, guys, if you're going to get the baffle in there, it does a whale of a good job. We have a video coming up here in a few minutes that's going to show you the difference of with or without the baffle, and we're going to show that to you and let you see the difference. But get it installed at the factory. When you order your new tanks, tell them to install the baffle in the tanks. You don't want to be doing that on existing tanks because you don't know what's been in them, all them reasons. It's just better to get it done here. With that, folks, I want to turn it over now, and I want to show you guys a video of the, we've talked about the baffle testing, and show you the differences, and take a good look at this, the differences of water movement inside of a tank with a baffle and without a baffle. With that, here you go. We'll be back shortly.
I can introduce and okay. Well, wasn't that cool? We that was just a little example of what that wall baffle does inside the tank, and does it work as effective as all full of baffle balls? Probably not, but that wall baffle blocks a huge amount of it. Just breaks the flow, and it's going to save a lot of wear and tear on your truck.
Gives you a peace of mind, whether you're driving the truck or whether you're one of your valuable employees or your family members is driving it. Just gives you that peace of mind to know you've done everything you can to give them a safe ride.
Absolutely. So moving on, we're going to talk a little bit about the thickness of the tanks. I'm going to, this thing here, random shape cutout piece of plastic, I'm going to give to Doug here, and he's just going to explain to you a little bit on how thick the tanks are and why.
So, okay, so I love to talk about these cutouts. And the reason being is this is an actual cutout off of a 1,600 gallon tank just like this. This is one of these legs. As you can see it, just like that, just like you slid it out. Okay, First thing I want to do is I'm going to bring this up close to the camera and I'm going to show you. This is only a 1,600 gallon, so this is only a mid-sized tank. Imagine how thick they are when you get to the 4,500s. They're over an inch thick at the bottom. This is a 1,600 gallon, and that's almost 3/4 of an inch thick, and this is halfway up the sidewall of the tank. They get thicker as you go down. So what you're looking at there is really, really high quality engineering and really high quality heavy duty product. I also want to show you inside of here. So look at the outside here. There's the pin mount. That's one of the trademarks of the Enduraplas transport tanks. We're going to talk about that after a little bit. But I want to show it to you. That's the pin mount where the pin goes through to mount it to the bed. Look inside of here now. You can't see that pin anywhere. That's full of plastic in there.
That's probably 2-3 inches thick of plastic there.
And that's just a 1,600 gallon tank. Now you go up to like the 3,200s, the 4,500s, you're talking about that thick of plastic around the pin mounts. That's why you can mount your tank to your truck bed or trailer bed, and you do not have to worry about it. That is the state-of-the-art, standard of the industry way to mount a tank right there.
Yeah, that's a good point, Doug. And these tanks here, and it's on our website, but these tanks are all rated for 16 pounds per gallon. So hauling water at 8.3 pounds per gallon these are way, way heavy,
almost overbuilt. Yep.
But we did that because of the fertilizer, the now liquid brine. There's a lot of other products that guys are transporting with these tanks.
Molasses.
Yep.
Tons of guys hauling molasses products for feeding cattle. That's a big user of these tanks. Mm-hmm. There's just so many. Road construction. Tons of people in the road construction use transport tanks. So ice brine, all kinds of things. But today we're just talking about the tanks themselves. Now we've talked about the thickness, we've talked about the way they're built. All that leads up to one thing, and that is Enduraplas is comfortable to put a 10-year warranty on their tank. Mm-hmm. I do believe that is the leader in the industry of warranties on plastic tanks. And the way that works, folks, is when you buy your tank, I don't know if you can see it here, but on the end of your tank there's a sticker. So every tank, regardless what you do, when you buy that tank, you're coming with a 5-year warranty. You get this tank home, and there's a sticker on the end. You go online and you register the tank, and when we say register, right down here is a serial number. You're going to need that. Register that serial number, that tank, who bought it, the day it was bought, all them things. You just doubled by doing nothing more than registering the tank. Doesn't cost you a thing. You just doubled the lifetime of your warranty from 5 to 10 years. Is that right? Am I getting that right?
Yep, that's it.
5
exactly
to 10
right.
years. So you now go to 10-year warranty just by registering that tank. So I would recommend when you buy your tank that be one of the first things you do. Would that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
With that, Mike,
Yep.
I don't know what else to tell them about the warranty. I'd like to turn it over to you to talk about the sight gauges and the gallon markers.
So some of the options, like the ladder, the sight gauge is the sight tube is an option that has to be ordered when ordering the tank. It does not come standard on the tank. It has to be specified to get. But what the sight gauge does for us is what we talked about, what Doug talked about with the black tank, not shining any light through for algae. So you can't see your liquid level inside the tank just looking at the side of it. So we have this sight gauge option. It's a very inexpensive option that you can see the level of liquid through. Now, as you see on these sight gauges, they all have a valve on the bottom side here. What is this valve for? Simply when when you're loading or unloading the tank, a lot of guys will have the valve open so they can see the product moving up and down the sight tube. Then it's recommended to shut the valve off, because if anything were to happen to that sight tube, if it got damaged, cut, something hooks it and just rips it off, you don't lose your product. Your valve is shut off and it doesn't flow the product out from the tank. You've actually got a insurance stopping point there. So good rule of thumb, is it correct, Doug, just to have the valve off if you're in use?
I don't know how it is on your farm, but on my farm, if it can happen, it will happen. So I would strongly recommend shutting that off, because somewhere along the line you're gonna lose a sight gauge. It's bound to happen. Now the sight gauge is not mandatory.
No.
You have to order it. If you want it, you have to order it special, but you don't have to use a sight gauge. If you're comfortable not using it, that's fine. But the majority of the tanks that go out of here do go out with one on, don't they?
Yeah, that's a good point. Another point that I missed here is the gallon indicators up the end of the tank here. So when you've got a liquid level in your clear tube, you can see across here we've got gallons and liters, both, so you can kind of get a real quick snapshot of where you're at there.
Now we have those gallon markings not only on both ends of the tank, we have them on the sides of the tank as well.
Right.
So if you want to, you can even put a sight gauge on the side, which you'll notice if you go through our website or catalog, you'll notice on our nurse trailers, that's where it is on them. It's on the side. So that's an option you can do as well.
Mm-hmm.
With that, I believe, do you want to talk any more about the sight gauge? Or
I think that's, unless there's any questions after, I would just...
There'll be questions come, I'm sure, and that'll be good. Right, we're going to just show you one more quick add-on feature. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but we offer a basket, a filter basket that goes inside of the lids. Largely, it works on the poly lids. It's an add-on feature. If you're going to fill through the top, I would recommend using it. Like I said before, most people this day and age do fill through their bottom ports. They force fill in through the bottom. So it's not as popular as it once was, but I just want to make it known to everybody that is a option that is available when you order your tank. So if you want the filter basket, definitely mention it to whoever you have on the phone that you would like that as well.
Good. Thanks for that, Doug.
With that,
we will move on and talk a little bit about, I'm going to have Doug just explain to you a little bit on the pin mount system. He mentioned it before, it was in the sample that he showed, but Doug, if you could just go into a little more detail on what you talked about, the pin mount system, why and how that's used.
Okay, so you all saw when I showed you, or hopefully everyone did, saw on that cutout of the tank, you saw how thick that corner is where the pin goes through. So on all of the tanks, 1,600 gallons and larger, there's 8 legs. So it's going to require a pin mount kit, which is 8 pins. And one goes through the corner of each leg. And you'll see on this pin that on each end, there's a hole drilled. That's almost a 1-inch thick pin. Okay? So you put that through, you run a bolt through, and you bolt that right down to the bed of your truck.
Bolts go through the end there.
Yep, on the tanks smaller than 1,600 gallons, there's quite a few of them have six legs, and then when you get to the really itty bitty ones, then they just have 4. But all of them mount the same. And it's like we've talked before, it's kind of one of the trademarks of Enduraplas, and it's something that we've come out with. It's a step forward in the industry. I think we're the only ones that have it at this point, and it is definitely a huge step forward in the way you mount a tank to a truck. But this is what give us the confidence, the pin mount system, to put a 10-year warranty on our tank, to put that warranty on there, because we know that with this mounting system, it is superior. Now the reason why that is, you put those bolts in, and you can pancake that right down to the bed of that truck, all the way around evenly. So you're not all cattywampus. Every leg is pulled down evenly, all the way around, tight to the bed of that truck. So that tank has to flex with the truck. It's no longer its own entity on there. It is part of the truck. It's that tight. And that's how you get the quality of mounting that we have with the pin mount system.
That's a good point, and that's why the tank is actually a DOT-approved tank, because it's secured, fastened solid to the truck. But to Doug's point, a lot of questions we get on how to mount a tank, and we do have a video on this on our website to go on to. But when mounting this, it's just as simple as drilling a hole right down through your truck bed. But a lot of the truck beds are wood deck or aluminum deck. And what I always recommend, best practice just for extra security, if you don't have a crossbar underneath of the deck that you can hit with the bolt, you can just put a little flat piece of steel underneath there, drill a hole in it. So underneath your truck bed is you put your bolt down, there's a nut and washer, but so that nut and washer has a piece of steel to stuck up to. It just gives it a lot more meat in there, so it's not pulling up through the truck bed with your nut end of the bolt.
That's good. That's good information, Mike. That's very helpful. Mike's installed quite a few of these actually in different times, and he kind of knows the tricks of it. You know, there's a lot of good success stories out there about these pin mount tanks. There's just a heap of them. We got a lot of customers that have used these and are using them and absolutely love them. We're going to show you here a picture. We're going to show you a picture right now of a good customer of ours. Just take a look on your screen. This is a truck, was full of liquid fertilizer. The driver turned the corner too short, tipped the trailer over, landed on the tanks. Okay? Now listen close. It totaled the truck, it totaled the trailer, and they took the tanks off and mounted them on another trailer and are still using them today.
And was it right, those tanks were about half full of liquid when they tipped?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So they lost the truck, they lost the trailer, they lost the liquid, but they still had the tanks. And we would attribute that largely to the pin mount system.
Yep.
Had they been mounted any other way, they would have lost the tanks as well.
Yep. And we often get asked, Doug, don't we, why we don't have hoops and bands over the tanks. That, what you've just explained to us, is exactly why we don't have to have a hoop over the tank. And the reason we don't want a hoop over the tank is because a tank expands and contracts and moves with liquid flow, and that hoop, you've always got to be tightening those down, otherwise your tank wearing underneath of that hoop or band, which fatigues the tank. We don't want that, so we developed, engineered this design, which we've had amazing success with, as Doug pointed out and as the picture showed.
Enduraplas is a company that's continually engineering. We never stop. There's always more engineering happening, and that is just an advancement in the tank world. That is, it's a pioneer, and it's just been a huge success. So with that, we just wanted to, we're going to show you guys a little video on this point, Doug, on the pins, and we're going to move into a durability test segment, which is going to be a little video clip that we show with the durability video that we did. And this is pretty cool. Pay attention to the video. We're going to talk a little bit about it when we come back. But stick with us, because we're going to be back for the question and answer session, and we look forward to having your questions.
Absolutely.
Hey folks, welcome back. Wasn't that a fun little commercial break? What did you think of that video? I thought it's absolutely awesome. There's so much we could talk about that video. I'm going to start with telling you a really funny little story about it. That video happened so spontaneously. You probably wouldn't believe me if I told you, but just so happened one day out at our welding fabricating shop, there was a crane sitting out there. And we had this idea that, hey, we should try out one of these. We should see what happens when you turn a transport tank upside down. Who ever heard of that? And hang it from the pins and fill it with water. And guess what? That's exactly what we did. Not only did we fill it with water, we bounced it up and down a few times just for good measure. The only thing we did, we forgot how we were going to get the water out of it. And did you know that when you put 26,000 pounds of water on one of those stainless lids, the lid will hold it in so good that you can't get it out? So what ended up having to happen was they had to knock the breathers off so we could let the water out. That was a funny day.
Yeah, yep. We had a lot of
tell
fun
them about
doing
the
that.
pins, Mike, when we took them out. That was the craziest thing.
Yeah, the interesting part of it is like Doug said, we had that tank hanging upside down, so we had the crane lifted up and then we dropped it, free-falled it a little bit, just to really test out that pin and see if we could break the tank. We actually took the pins out when we were all done and we got the tank empty. The pins were bent in a horseshoe with the strain of jerking that tank up and down. There was no cracks, no nothing, no fatigue to the tank at all. Those pins held it absolutely solid. So that picture of the truck you saw tipped over on the tanks, that's why Enduraplas is comfortable with the engineer design of that.
That's why we have the confidence we have in our product to put a 10-year warranty on it. We're absolutely confident in it. And do we have failures? Yes, we do. Because anytime you manufacture a product, anytime there's man-made product, you're going to have a percentage that's going to give trouble. We replace those. That's what we do. If it's within the warranty, we replace them. It does happen. But we are so confident in our product that we put that 10-year warranty on there with that solid backup plan, so that you are never without a backup plan when you buy an Enduraplas tank.
Yeah, so we do those kind of things once in a while, not just because we like wrecking stuff, but simply to prove to ourselves that our engineering is working, and it is.
It is.
Comfortably.
So with that, we would like to introduce you to another, it's called the customer review segment. This is the first time we've ever done a customer review on a live virtual showroom, isn't it?
Yep.
And this one here is coming from a good friend of ours. He became a good friend after he was a customer, but he's a good friend and a good customer now. Mr. Rodney Tobin from down along the I-29 corridor down in South Dakota. He's a family farmer. Him and his wife run a good operation down there. They bought one of our semi-trailers with a couple of our transport tanks, and he would love to tell you why he chose Enduraplas.
So with that, we're going to turn it over and show you a video.
My name is Rodney Tobin, Pierpont, South Dakota. I'm a third-generation farmer. I've lived on this farmstead my entire life. I had a dream, and I've kind of fulfilled my dream with this unit. And so after season, I picked up this trailer, and if love is a proper term, I love it. It's cut our spraying time at least in half, if not by 2/3. For clean out, it cleans out just almost perfectly with the sumps. The black tanks are a real plus because you can leave water in there for a couple weeks while you're waiting for the wind to go down, and when you're ready to go, you've got water that isn't full of algae. One man will be in the semi, and he anticipates about where the guy will be needing water and chemical the next time. He parks near an approach, sprayer pulls up, and we just swing the hose out, connect to the front of the sprayer, and in just mere minutes, you can be loaded and he can be spraying again. My name is Rodney Tobin, and I use Enduraplas.
Hey, welcome back one more time, everybody. We're just about to our question and answer session, but before we get to the question and answer session, I want to say a really quick thank you to my friend and customer, Rodney Tobin, for giving us that good testimonial. And any of you that want to give a testimonial on your product, you absolutely are welcome to call in or write in or email in or whatever and give us a testimonial. Thank you, Rodney. Thank you so much. Michael, you know Rodney as well. He comes to all the farm shows, comes to visit us in the booth, and I'll tell you what, he's just a great customer, a great friend, and a great guy to be around.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks, Doug. And I want to say a massive thank you to Mr. Rodney Tobin. Interesting guy and interesting farm setup. I think he's a third-generation farmer. And this is something that we're extremely passionate about. I mean, the farming, agriculture in America is in the heartland. It's the heartbeat of America.
It's the backbone.
And Doug and I are really passionate in this because we're both off a family farm, born and raised, raising livestock, crop farming, and all this. So this is what we just really, really enjoy: engineering, designing, and manufacturing a product that brings a lot of safety to your farm, but keeps that family farm going. We're trying to always make it as safe as we can and with the right features, and just have something that benefits that family farm to keep it in operation. And again, I'd just like to say thank you to Rodney. He's done a terrific job of farming and a terrific job with the Enduraplas product, so thank you.
Thank you again. And it's great. It's great to be part of the Enduraplas family. We build a product that you can use on your farm just like we use on ours, and you can use it every day and have the peace of mind that it's going to work for you. Every day is going to. With that, I think we'd like to turn over to a question and answer session. I trust there's some questions, and we'll do our best to answer them. If we don't have the answer for you, we will certainly get answers and get back to you with them. Looks like the first question here is, what is the percentage volume loss when using baffle balls? Michael, you can help them with that.
So with the baffle balls,
I'll get it for you.
Okay, so with the baffle balls, the 16-inch baffle balls that we clipped together and showed you, it's about 1%. So when you're at a 1,600-gallon tank, you're using up about 16 gallons of liquid displacement.
Yep.
So you're about 1% displacement. If that makes sense, I don't know. Is that?
It makes sense. I trust that's a good question. I hope that was a suitable answer, but it takes up about 1%. So the next question is the base of the tank sloped? Okay, I'll answer that one. So that's a little bit of a mixed answer. On the 2,800 and the 3,200 gallon, yes, they are sloped. And the reason they are sloped only on the sump bottom tanks. Now that's only on the sump bottom. The 2,800 and the 3,200 sump bottom are sloped. And the reason for that is that's for fast drain out. Those particular two models are made for speed. They're made for speed. The other models, 2,500, 3,000, those sump bottoms, they're still going to be the flat bottom except for the sump. But like Michael talked about, they have the trough in the bottom, and the legs have some slope, some taper, because of the way they're molded and the thickness on the outside edge. So it's still going to all drain out, even though they're not a completely sloped bottom. The freestanding or flat bottom tanks, we call them freestanding to be clear, those do not have a slope bottom. Those are a flat bottom in the tank. I hope that answers your question there.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yep.
Good.
Now you can have the next question, Mike.
Okay, next question is, where can I add fittings to the side of these tanks? So that's a great question, because any time obviously you've got a rounded side, you're not going to want to install a fitting in there for the simple fact that you've got two halves of fitting that are flat and got a seal together. So anywhere that the tank is rounded, I don't recommend putting a fitting in it. Now, if you're want to put a fitting on the leg of the tank, you can. I mean, some guys put a sight tube up the side of the tank. You can put a fitting in the leg of the tank and go up.
I would recommend, if you're doing that you stay quite a ways up, because the leg gets very, very thick when you get down towards the pin mount. And what will happen is your like Michael talked about with the rounded part, your fitting will not seal, and you'll end up inside the tank with an angle grinder trying to flatten out a spot so you're fitting, and that is not a good situation.
Which is a great point that comes up, which we kind of missed in the design of the tank. As you see in the end of the tank, we have a flat spot on each side here. The whole purpose for that flat spot is to install a fitting. So
Added fittings.
You've got a discharge fitting coming out the bottom here, and a lot of guys, if they're running liquid fertilizer or something, want a fitting here so they can run through their pump and recirculate back into the tank. This here is specifically made to install a fitting on a nice flat spot there. So if possible, we always recommend putting the fittings on those flat ends.
Yes. It's always better to put it where the factory recommends it, rather than try and do something different. But there's always situations where something different has to be done, and if so, I would recommend that you probably talk to someone at the factory before you do something.
Yeah, just beware of that rounded side, absolutely.
Yeah. What's the best way to fill these tanks? So that's a good question, but the best way, of course, is to use the actual fitting on the end or the bottom. The best way is to force in through the fitting. Now, the reason why is because, of course, it's cleaner. When you're taking right from one vessel to another through a hose, through a pump, everything stays cleaner, you could force fill it. If you don't have that option, absolutely use the lid. Fill through the lid. That's just fine. Like we showed you on the smaller tanks, put a filter basket in there, a strainer basket, and then you're going to have clean water anyway. But probably the recommended way, if you're not already doing it that way, is to fill through the bottom port, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
No, I agree 100% with that answer, Doug. So next question we got here is related to the pins. Are the pins included when the tank is purchased? Are they more expensive than hoops?
So we got two questions. You can have the first one.
Good. Are the pins included with the tank purchase? No, they're not. This is an additional purchase. So you order the tank, and the 8 pins that go with the tank for mounting it do come separately. So you do have to buy the tank and buy the 8 pins. Now the expense or the price of the pins, I'll just kind of roll that over to Doug.
It's
over and against the hoops.
It's going to be somewheres. The price of the pins is going to be somewheres around $15 a pin, give or take a little bit, depending where you're at. So you're really, really inexpensive. On an 8, you're only talking about $120 total cost for the pin mount. If you compare that, I don't know the cost of hoops exactly, since we don't do the hoops anymore. I don't even follow that market because it just seems like we've left that so far in the dust. But the hoops,
I think they can run in that $700 to $1,000.
$700 to $1,000. So you're not even you're talking apples to oranges when you start talking the cost of the pin mount system compared to the cost of the hoops. Do our tanks cost a little more? Yes, they do. And the reason why is because they're engineered better, they're engineered heavier, they're engineered to not need the hoops. So they're going to cost a little more than a tank that needs hoops. But you're saving yourselves a lot of headache, a lot of wear and tear. Boom. I mean, it's real simple. So why does one tank come with a stainless lid?
So we touched on this earlier, Doug, I think, but we'll touch on it again. This tank here is a 1,600 gallon. So anything 1,600 gallons and up all comes standard with the stainless steel lid. Anything below 1,600 gallons is going to come with our poly, quarter-turn poly lid. So everything 1,600 gallons and up is stainless steel.
And there's quite a few reasons for that. Of course, the first one is because when you get into the bigger tanks, there's a lot more liquid movement, so you've got a lot more risk of the lid popping out. You get in these little tanks, and it doesn't happen near as often. It can happen, but not near as much. The other side of it is, on the smaller tanks, we have tried to keep the cost down. There's no hiding it. That stainless lid is an expensive piece. That's an expensive add-on, and that is why we have included that on the 1,600 gallon and larger tanks. When you get a quote for a tank, it comes with that lid. Yep. That is not something we tack on later. That comes standard on there. So you're actually getting a pretty serious upgrade for the cost of the tank. We don't do it on these little tanks because it kind of takes it out of proportion a little bit, because it's such a valuable piece.
Good point, Doug. Good point.
So what is better, the Baffle or Baffle Balls? That's a matter of opinion. Michael, you give them yours and I'll give them mine.
Okay. And mine is, what is better? Obviously, the Baffle Balls are better. Reason is a wall baffle in the center of the tank is definitely going to have a significant amount of breaking the water sloshing back to front. It is going to break a large amount of water sloshing back to front. Where is the Baffle Balls better is because these stop that slosh not only back to front but side to side. As you can see, that water's got no movement. It's got no room to gain momentum, to move any direction. Because if it's not going to hit this ball and it's going to go through that hole, it's going to hit the next one. So you've got basically a solid load with Baffle Balls. Are they more expensive, as Doug pointed out before? Yes, they are. But honestly, it's well worth the money. So
now I'm going to give you my opinion. And I agree with a lot of the points Mike made there. As far as stability goes, yes. If you're hauling water or hauling the same fertilizer day after day commercially, yes, that's the right way to go. Now, if you are hauling hot mixed liquid chemical, or if you're changing brands of fertilizer, or if you're doing anything like that, then I'm going to tell you, no, this is not the right way. Then you should go with the upright baffle. And the reason for that is because these do such a good job of holding the water in, they don't necessarily drain out real good, real fast. You're going to get some residue left in there.
Yep,
so as long as
bottom pockets.
So as long as you're just moving water or just moving the same product, that won't matter, and you'll get that stability and not have to worry about it. But if it's something that you need to drain out or rinse your tank out, this is not an easy way to do that. So that's why we've come up with the other baffle system, is for the guys that are actually having to clean their tanks out, rinse them out, and use it for other products. So it's a matter of opinion. It's also a matter of application. You know, what's your application? And I would say the best thing to do with that, call into the factory, talk to one of the sales reps, the territory managers, talk to one of the in-house sales team, and they'll walk you through. They'll ask you questions about the application. They'll ask you questions about how you're going to use it, and then they'll make recommendations of what they think would be the best according to your application. That's how we like to do it. So, so is one better than the other? Depends on your application.
Yep, exactly right.
In different applications, each one is better than the other. So.
And we do have, this is a 16-inch diameter ball, and we have them in 7.5 inch. So they fit in an 8-inch lid or a 16-inch lid. So they don't just go in Enduraplas tanks. They will fit competitors' tanks too, as long as your opening is 16-inch or 8-inch. We do have that option.
Yep.
But good points. Good points.
So I think we're up to our last question. They're telling us, where can I buy these tanks? And I need to see the sizes. Okay. Now this is going to, this is always a tough question because the virtual showroom goes to such a huge audience, doesn't it?
Yep.
So we kind of got to break it into segments. If you are from somewheres in the Midwest, I would say either go online and look for your closest dealer or call in and we will direct you to your closest dealer. We've got all across the Midwest, we've got excellent dealers set up that have these tanks in inventory. Probably not going to be a far drive from you wherever you are in the Midwest. They're probably going to be pretty close by. And we are very loyal to our dealers. We are going to send you back to the dealers to buy the tanks. So if you're from the Midwest or in the areas where we have dealers set up, call us. We'll put you back to that dealer and we'll get you taken care of. And we've got good dealers that will take very good care of you. If you're from outside of that area, outside of the Midwest area on the coasts, some areas we have dealers, but not all. So I'm still going to recommend that you call in and talk to us. But in a situation like that, we may have to get a little more creative with how we get them to you, but we certainly will.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then it's the second part of this question is I need to see the sizes. Enduraplas.com and go to horizontal transport tanks. I think they're listed as transport tanks.
Yep.
You've got all the freestanding tanks, the sump tanks, and all the sizes. You just select your size. It tells you the specs. It has the videos shown below.
Dimensions.
Dimensions, all that good stuff. So go on Enduraplas.com. You can even click on real easily and send in a question or go on. I think there's a chat on there now where you can go on and just chat back and forth with the rep. I recommend that.
Also, we're talking about the Enduraplas website. I invite you to go on there and look at it. We've got some really, really awesome videos. Not just the virtual showrooms, they're of course all on there too, but awesome videos for quality, different quality tests we've done, different drop tests. We've got that one where we drop the car on top of a tank. That's a hugely popular video. We've got all kinds of them.
The other thing is what I would encourage is to go on there. If you're an existing customer, go on there and write a review and be the next Rodney Tobin to get on one of our videos. We'd love to have you. With that, I think we're going to wrap it up, Doug. If that's all, I would like to just say thank you from us at Enduraplas.
Thank you from me and Mike. We enjoy doing these online showrooms for you. We enjoy having you for attendance and look forward to the next one. Thank you all. God bless. Take care.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you all for joining us for another live virtual showroom. We're going to be taking a break for the month of July, but we'll be back for another event in August. Stay safe.